Late at night, Reizo faces a man and his two bodyguards. The man instantly recognizes Reizo, but before he can react, Reizo swiftly kills all three of them. After Reizo leaves, the dying man pulls out a gold coin and bites it before taking his last breath. Later, Yuen finds the man's body and takes the gold coin. The next day, Reizo is resting under a bridge when Yuen approaches him. He introduces himself as Yuzhui Yuen and asks for Reizo's name. Reizo replies that he is Kurima Reizo, a loyal retainer to the daimyo of Satsuma. Yuen explains that he does odd jobs and is a merchant of all trades. He also mentions rumors about a stern-looking samurai living quietly like a legendary warrior, which made the locals uneasy. They hired Yuen to investigate. Yuen observes that Reizo, being a refined man, yet avoiding inns, must not want to be seen. Reizo admits that he killed someone, not out of personal hatred, but because it was an order. As a retainer, it was his duty to eliminate traitors who threatened the clan. Yuen is surprised, pointing out that if Reizo had done nothing wrong, he should be able to return home instead of hiding under a bridge. Reizo confesses that the man he killed was someone important to him, and he can't face those who knew him. Yuen understands, but tells Reizo that staying there won't change anything. Reizo thanks him for the advice and leaves, telling Yuen he can report that Benkei Musashibo was the one responsible. As Reizo is leaving town through the mountains, three horsemen appear. They recognize him, and Reizo wonders if they've come to escort him, but that would be unusual for Matsumine-sama. The men praise Reizo for his skill, mentioning how he killed all of his father-in-law's men by himself. Reizo simply responds that, regardless of relationships, he had no choice because the man was involved in opium trading. The men applaud his loyalty, but tell him there is still one more thing he must do. Suddenly, they draw their guns and call him a fool. Reizo is confused, but they tell him to ask Hirata when he dies. Just then, a voice calls out, telling Reizo to jump if he wants to live. Without hesitation, Reizo leaps off the cliff as the men fire at him. They hit him, but he plunges into the river below. Believing he is dead, the men turn back to report to Matsumine-sama. However, Neo had secretly attached a string to Reizo and pulls him out of the water. Reizo wakes up later in Yuen's home. He wonders if Yuen saved him, and Yuen casually says he does all kinds of work. His day job is making maki gold lacquer crafts, but through his connections, he learns about the underworld. He reveals shocking news. Someone from Satsuma has been secretly dealing opium with English merchants. Hirata Genshin had been investigating this in Nagasaki, trying to expose the truth. Reizo is stunned, realizing the truth for the first time. The man he killed, his fiancée's father, was innocent. Yuen tells him that the real mastermind behind the opium trade is Matsumine Jonishin, the chief financial officer of Satsuma. Hirata had almost gathered enough proof to expose him before Reizo was tricked into killing him. Hearing this, Reizo breaks down in tears. Reizo, filled with guilt, asks why Yuen even bothered saving him. He had been deceived into murdering his own fiancée's father. How could he ever live with that shame? Yuen explains that if Reizo had died, Matsumine would have gotten away with everything. Before his death, Hirata had hired Yuen as a backup in case something happened to him. Yuen then pulls out the bitten gold coin and says that to infiltrate Satsuma's castle, he needs someone who knows it well. He asks Reizo if he will help. After a moment, Reizo nods. Reizo leads Yuen and his group to Satsuma. As they arrive, they overhear people talking about Yui, Reizo's wife, who lost both her father and husband at the same time. Yuen warns Reizo that Yui cannot know he is alive yet. Reizo agrees, admitting that he himself is not ready to face her after what he has done. They settle in an abandoned house, where Reizo gives details about Matsumine's location. Yuen asks if there is a secret exit, but Reizo says there isn't. Matsumine fully trusts his men. Yuen decides they will strike that night, but advises Reizo to stay behind due to his injuries. Meanwhile, the three men who tried to kill Reizo are celebrating their success with Matsumine. They talk about how the Westerners plan to use opium to control the Qing dynasty and wonder if the same will happen to Nagasaki. Matsumine doesn't care, as he believes that no matter who rules, they will need a local governor. The men praise his foresight. Outside, Yuen's group makes their move. One of the men leaves to fetch more sake, but finds the servants tied up. Before he can react, Neo throws a string around his neck, attaches it to a kite, and sends it soaring, slicing his throat. The other two hear the noise and step outside. One of them faces Soji, who throws razor-sharp cards, severing his fingers before finishing him off with a few more well-placed throws. The last man encounters Yuen, who silently presses a gold sheet over his face. As the man suffocates, Yuen kneels and prays for his soul. Yuen's group then storms into Matsumine's room, only to find he has escaped through a hidden passage. Yuen realizes that Reizo had outplayed them. Matsumine flees into the forest, where Reizo is already waiting for him. Reizo tells him he is willing to listen if he has anything to say. Instead, Matsumine pulls out his pistol. Before he can fire, Reizo swiftly cuts him down. Teppa, who had followed Reizo, arrives with the rest of the group. They watch as Reizo finishes Matsumine. Neo wonders if everything they did was for Reizo's sake. Soji is annoyed that Reizo took their target and questions how they will explain this to their superiors. Teppa reminds them that the mission's goal was to ring the bell, no matter how the job was done. Neo nods and goes to do just that. Hearing the bell, Reizo rushes to Yui. He wants to tell her everything, apologize, and take responsibility for his actions. But when he arrives, it is too late. Yui, after hearing the bell, has taken her own life. Reizo holds her in his arms, crying. He whispers that there is so much he still has to atone for.